Now, I think it's best to introduce our guest this way. This is our guest who recently retired to go into the private sector from the Secret Service, Dan Bongino, talking about the Second Amendment, extremely impassioned defense of our most basic of rights.
That flag represents something. Men and women have died horrible deaths. Horrible deaths, my uncle being one of them, shot in the back in Vietnam to protect your very right. We live in a society of wolves. You do not fight back by creating more sheep.
Dan Bongino joins us. And again, I saw this clip a while back and said that's the type of Secret Service or people in government, period, we need. That's founding father type statements we're hearing. Bongino.com. Is his website, and he's now left the Secret Service happily to start his own private, high-profile client list dealing with crisis and assessment mitigation. And he, again, graduated with honors out of the Secret Service Academy back in '99. He's run high-profile operations all over the world with the POTUS, and so he's a senior guy when he left. And we're excited to have him on with us. And it's good to see people out there defending the Second Amendment so eloquently. So, Dan, good to have you on with us.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Wow. So much is going on in the world. What do you make of now the move to have some of the victims, the parents, on Air Force One with Obama of Sandy Hook?
Well, listen, these are, unfortunately, these parents were subject to an unspeakable tragedy. I think everybody's life changed. Everybody knows where they were when they heard about these events in Sandy Hook. I know I was actually driving to a funeral for a family member, which just compounded my misery. But, Alex, guns don't have rights. People do. And that's one thing that's been lost in this. This is not about gun control. He's manipulating those folks and using them as political props to further an agenda that really has nothing to do, unfortunately, and I mean that, with actually preventing events similar to that from happening again. There are ways to stop any Sandy Hooks from happening in the future. But the president's really not interested in those. He's interested in political games, and that's what he's doing right now. And
that's why I wanted to get you on. The Secret Service, probably the leading experts worldwide in protecting a high-profile individual like the president that could have governments, terrorists, you name it, wanting to target them. What would you do as an expert to protect the schools?
Right. What's good for the goose is not good for the gander in these situations. What model of security that you know of, what model of security involves, unarmed security and all of these kind of nonsensical measures, gun-free zones? How come we don't do that when I was a Secret Service agent around the president? Well, you know what? We don't need guns here, folks. We're just going to declare a gun-free zone, 360 degrees around the president, going to walk around. If I were to say that, your listeners right now are probably laughing, like that's ridiculous. Of course, but it's not ridiculous when it comes to your kids. That's exactly, I just described to you exactly the security situation that your benevolent class of politicians, these so-called angels, and I use air quotes there, are prescribing for your children. No system that defends their kids, by the way, just yours. Now, you have things, armed school security, man traps, which we have situations where you can put they call it a man trap, a door that won't open until another door closes, one person at a time at school. You have things like entering mental health records into NICS. Now, I'm a libertarian, so I'm always careful with that, but mental health records that have been vetted through some judicial review, entering them into NICS, which is the gun check background system. You have harsh penalties for criminals who misuse firearms. There are real things that have worked. None of them are in this legislation at all. This is, again, guns don't have rights. People do. They are taking away your rights. There's nothing to do with guns at all. This is a simple political ploy to get you all to applaud while your civil liberties continue to dissipate like an Alka-Seltzer tablet in a bad drink of water.
Well, expanding on that, we have the FBI crime statistics that are the model of statistics worldwide, because so many statistics are bogus, but these are 80 years old, where they collect them from thousands of jurisdictions, and 49% drop in violent crime since 1991, and they directly draw the line to the proliferation of the Second Amendment and the fact that criminals are scared in places like Texas or Arizona to break in somebody's house because they know there's a gun on the other side. But in Chicago or New York, where they've disarmed the people, the crime rates are the highest in the world. in Chicago, even worse than Mexico, the murder capital as a country. I mean, the proof is right there. My own police chief here in Austin says, hey, you know, you shouldn't have high-capacity mags, and you're with the criminals if you do that. Well, criminals are going to have high-capacity mags regardless, so, well, what do you say to those numbers?
Right. Well, you know, I can give you an on-the-ground example of this. I was a police officer with the NYPD and a Secret Service agent for a combined 16 years, 12 in the Secret Service, 4 at the NYPD. Alex, I never, ever arrested a criminal or investigated a criminal or, frankly, heard of an agent or a cop who was investigated or arrested someone who had a gun legally. I'm not saying legal gun owners occasionally are not involved in crimes. But the thing is, it's so exceedingly rare that to forfeit away your civil liberties for a group of folks, legal gun owners, that are not the problem seems to me like an obvious scam. It's a scam. They're called lawbreakers for a reason. Alex, they don't give a damn, pardon my language, about the law. They don't care. They are not interested in your magazine limits. Matter of fact, you know who determines the amount of ammunition, amount of rounds you need in your firearm to defend yourself in a gunfight? Not you, not a bureaucrat. The bad guy attacking you does. When he stops shooting, then you're done too. Nobody, to have a bureaucrat like a Dianne Feinstein so disingenuously, who's defended by men with guns, by the way, claim that if you're a talented shooter, whatever her ridiculous words were, you only need less than 10 rounds. It's so ridiculous that to any common sense thinking individual, you would almost laugh hysterically if you could evaluate this outside of the emotions attached to the issue. This is only going to impact law-abiding gun owners who have done absolutely nothing wrong. They just want to live and let live and be left alone by a government just absolutely obsessed with a further encroachment on your civil rights.
It's amazing. And then you see Bloomberg, who has up to 15 people on his, quote, security detail, and then they'll even rough people up, cameramen that come up and ask him questions. I mean, it's clear. The government wants to have the monopoly of guns, just like the greatest mass murderer in history said, political power grows out of the barrel of a gun. Mao Zedong wasn't for government gun control. What do you make, and again, he was a senior Secret Service agent when he retired to go into private security practice. Dan Bongino joins us. What made you leave the Secret Service and decide to go into the private sector?
Well, I resigned. I wish I had retired. I would have been able to keep my health benefits and pension and all of that. I did. My wife and I took an enormous financial hit. You know, Alex, there comes a point in your life where you have to determine. You know, my father said to me when I was younger, fight the good fight. And I'd say, well, what's the good fight? He said, well, that's for you to determine. And he got that from, 2 Timothy 4:7. I fought the good fight. I've ran the race. I've kept the faith. I knew my good fight was this one. Our ideological battle in our generation is not what we went through in the Civil War, defending the country and abolishing the scourge of slavery. It's not our revolution where we fought for the very ideas of limited government freedom. That's not it. What we're fighting now is an ideology, a pernicious, dangerous, and historically deadly ideology that says that other men and women have been imbued with some special powers to reign over your life and take your liberty and to move forward. And this is somehow a benevolent way, knighted by the Lord himself, that these men should take control of your life. This is our fight. This is our time. I left because I knew that was my fight. And I knew with the Hatch Act, and it would be unfair, and it would be disingenuous to sit there and have to listen to any more of these speeches. And I would have died for the President of the United States no matter what. It's not a political thing. We're not a banana republic here. We're not a third world country. We do our damage at the voting booth. But I couldn't contribute to this anymore. You are either in this fight or you are not, folks. And if you are not, you are going to rue the day that you let this happen and know that today is the best it was ever going to be, that your children had less than you have and have no American dream because you refused to get in this fight. This is it. Right now, you're at the event horizon. Action matters.
Wow, I like this, what you're saying. You're absolutely right. We're at the crossroads. Now the future of this country has been set. Have you seen the video that started airing as a promo last week where MSNBC host, in fact, cue that up, guys. MSNBC host says your kids belong to the collective. Have you seen that?
I've heard of it. I didn't see the video, but I know exactly what you're speaking. I was afraid to watch it for obvious reasons.
But, I mean, it's so over the top how authoritarian the Democrats have become. Because I'm not even a Republican. I'm more of a constitutional libertarian. I mean, these people, I've read a lot of history books. I mean, these people are really creepy. And I'm having to argue with my wife, who's got a degree in French and history. She's wanting to get out of the U.S., and I respect the fact that, obviously you left the Secret Service, you can run for office and try to fight this. We should talk about that. But, I mean, it's just the creepy meter is broken. It's off the chart here with all the weirdness of these people.
Right, and don't you see what they're doing, folks? They're leveraging crisis. They're not crisis managing. They're crisis leveraging. They're using a national emotional crisis to get you to believe things that simply aren't true. Why is this country different than any country in the history of mankind? Why are we the most prosperous? Why is today, right now, the most prosperous human beings have ever had it in this place at this time? Because we were unique. We developed unique. That's an overused word. Not in this case. Men sat down and developed that piece of paper, that Constitution, which for the first time in human history, the side that won in a battle decided not to take more power, but to limit their power. They realized that the real power was in the hearts of individual men, not of government ruling over them. It was such a unique situation. It was unheard of that we had won this revolution, and the men who had led it didn't draw up a constitution that made them monarchs and kings and aristocrats. It made them civil servants. It made them servants to the people. That's what made
They tried to make George Washington king, and he got really angry.
Right, he left. What is it what King George said after he stepped down after his second term, although he could have ran, and you and I know this, Alex, he could have ran 4 more times and won each time. He said, if this is true, he must be the greatest man who ever lived. These men understood the danger of losing your liberty, your real liberty, something you can put teeth in, your economic liberty, your money, your healthcare liberty.
Well, look, they demonize America all day looking at our problems, but if you look at other cultures, it's been the best, and liberty created so much wealth that now a bunch of spoiled brat collectivists who don't dream of building their own world, their own creation, they dream of making us be their slaves, and so the bigger the government gets, the more power they have. Let's play the clip of the MSNBC host in a promo, Melissa Harris Perry, saying your kids belong to the collective, and folks, they mean to the state. Here it is.
We have never invested as much in public education as we should have because we've always had kind of a private notion of children. Your kid is yours and totally your responsibility. We haven't had a very collective notion of these are our children. So part of it is we have to break through our kind of private idea that kids belong to their parents or kids belong to their families and recognize that kids belong to whole communities. Once it's everybody's responsibility and not just the households, then we start making better investments.
Dan, what'd you make of that?
What human being on the planet, the real question for any of your listeners who may be on the other side of the political fence, what human being on the planet cares about your children more than you do? What? The answer is none. There is no way that is true. There is no collective. There are groups of human beings who live in this land at this time right now under this governing system. Alex, there is no collective. There's no collective mind. There's no collective money. It's individual money taken by people. There is no collective heart or mind that cares about your kids either.
Well, statistically, the government is 5 to 7 times more likely to abuse children than any other group. That's the Justice Department's own numbers. I mean, this is the worst group to give kids to. Look at North Korea. Look at Nazi Germany. I know you know all this. I want to come back and talk about how we take this country back and what you're doing over there on your website. Very, very interesting site. We'll give that address out to all of the viewers and the listeners, Bongino.com. Very exciting to see libertarian constitutionalists like yourself out there speaking out and running for office. We're going to come back and talk about what you're doing and where you see this political fight going.
I'm Darren McBreen, and these are some of the new items that are available now at InfoWarsShop.com.
Alert the public to Obama's blatant abuse of power with the new Obama t-shirt. Obama's Joker face on the front and come and take it on the back. It's time to publicly call him out for what he is, a tyrant. Defend the Second Amendment with our top seller Come and Take It t-shirts. And look at that, women's cut tank tops and t-shirts now available. Nice hat. Plus the Don't Tread on Me flag. And now you can become a micro distributor of the InfoWars magazine. Plus, get your own copy delivered right to your door each and every month. And if you're tired like I am of you and your family being exposed to polluted drinking water, get the Pro One high performance water filter. It gets rid of all pathogenic bacteria, cyst, fluoride, heavy metals, and numerous other contaminants.
So join the revolution at InfoWarsShop.com.
They came and took it away.
It was an inside job, just like it always is. Dan Bongino's got a big announcement tomorrow. I know what it is, but we'll tell you about it tomorrow. Statewide run in Maryland. Boy, they sure need it. They're trying to take the guns there right now. I was asking you during the break about your philosophy and when it all clicked for you, and that was pretty powerful. Please repeat that, Dan.
Well, I was at when it all really punched me in the gut. I was at USC campus listening to a speech, by the president, and I just watched as all these 18 and 22-year-old kids just sat there in just endless rounds of applause over these just old, formerly, deadly, historically ideas that were just being regurgitated in such flowery words, and I just could not believe it. I say it almost half jokingly, but not. There was one of those Star Wars films where the Natalie Portman character, says, "Here it is, it all collapses to thunderous rounds of applause." And
yeah, this is how liberty dies. Not with people booing it, but with thundering applause. And you're sitting there, you described it as he promotes total collectivism, and the kids are soaking it in. Your spirit made a decision right there to break with it.
Yeah, I couldn't take it, and I knew it was going to be just a devastating financial decision and hardship on my wife and I. But in order to avoid just embarrassing the White House completely and leaving there, I fulfilled my assignment. I waited a couple months to not make because I really wanted it. I did not want it to be a distraction from my real messenger, and I just walked away. And I remember my boss being just stunned, but that was it. That was the moment I went back to my, family and just, I said, Paula, I can't do this anymore. I mean, if you are not doing something, action matters. You are not part of the problem, Alex. You're the problem. You are allowing this to happen. This whole, I give up. We've lost a few political fights. You don't get to give up, folks. It's not a golf game. You can't walk off the golf course. The president's not. This is a boxing match. When you stop punching, I got news for you. The other guy's hitting you harder. You don't have a choice. This is your fight.
That's right. People think, it's work to fight evil. Folks, total authoritarianism is taking over. Okay, that's the way it always works. They're not going to give up, and if we just stood up, we'd beat them. That's why it's very exciting that you're going to run for a statewide office in Maryland. And do you have children?
I have 2 daughters, yeah.
Well, I have 2 daughters and a son. And let me tell you, it's beyond anger. It's beyond disgust. It's love. But the feelings I have when I look at them and I think of how corrupt this system is, it is a feeling of determination to stand against this evil.
Yeah, I mean, how are we going to look our kids in the eye and say, Isabel, that's my daughter, this is the best it's ever going to be? Daddy stole away your American dream because we had a so-called save, and I use that term loosely at best, save our economy now. We couldn't deal with 6 months of economic hardship for continued prosperity. We had to steal away this is the best car you're ever going to drive in. This is the nicest home you're ever going to live in. This is the finest food you're ever going to eat. This is it today.
And you're going to have TSA grab all over you when it's all theater.
Right, you're going to have drones watching you in a Starbucks. The president's AG couldn't even answer the question that if you're in a Starbucks with your kid on United States, on our country.
I've got to ask you this. What do you make of the 2 billion bullets they're buying, the armored vehicles, all that craziness?
The fact that they won't answer the question is more disturbing than anything. I mean, they create their own paranoia. What do they need that for? Just answer the question. It's our money. It's our tax dollars. Why in a recession would you need that? I find it ironic they put out a release saying they were cutting all this training because of the sequester. Well, what are you doing with the bullets then if you don't need them for? I don't understand.
They're trying to drop the supply.
Yeah, I think it's an economic battle against law-abiding firearm owners who, if you can't get the ammo, it's not the gun that does the damage. It's the bullet. When
People can follow you on Facebook by going to Bongino.com and everywhere else. Promise to come back on in a few weeks after you've announced tomorrow.
Will do, Alex. Thanks for the time.
All right, I'll say bye to you during the break. Wow. I like that guy. Visit Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com. When you're on the site, you can also tune in 24 hours a day to my daily radio broadcast. There's also a free iPhone app to listen to the syndicated radio show when and where you want.